It says, number 11 says, using the graph, determine any relative maxima and relative minima of the function. I mean, this is pretty straightforward because they've already got the points plotted for you. So if you look at number 11 right here, this would be a relative maximum because it doesn't get any higher than this point at this location. It's not an absolute maximum because you can see that this keeps going up right here, but this point is the point. So it is a relative maximum, and it's the point 0, 1. So this is X and this is Y. So at X equals 0, we have a relative maximum of 1. This point is a relative minimum because at this location, it doesn't get any lower than this. It's not an absolute minimum because the graph keeps going down over here. But this point is the point 2, -3. So when X is equal to 2, you've got a minimum value of Y is equal to -3. Okay, and so the right answer on number 11 is B. Number 12 says, how can the graph of f of x equals -x minus 6 squared plus 9 be obtained from the graph of y equals x squared? Okay, so this negative on the outside is a reflection across the x-axis. Going to kind of flip it across the x-axis. This -6 that's inside the parentheses is going to do the opposite of what we think. So since it's -6, I would think it's left, but this means it's going to be the right 6. The +9 is going to make this thing go up 9, which is exactly what we think if it's on the outside of the parentheses. And so on number 12, the right answer is going to be D. We're shifting it horizontally 6 units to the right, reflected across the x-axis, and shifted up 9 units. Everybody okay with that? On number 13, you could absolutely use the quad program here if you wanted to. I don't have the quad program on my computer program, but on the quad program on the calculator, you would say, okay, A is equal to 2, B is equal to 9, and C is equal to 3, and hit enter, and it's going to give you the right answer, right? Or you could work it by hand and use the Pythagorean, not the Pythagorean theorem, the quadratic formula where you say X is equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. And so if you do this, you're going to get, I'm writing down the negative here, b is 9 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So 9 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 3, all over 2 times a, which is 2. And to be honest with you, this one's pretty easy to figure out. 9 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3 ends up being 57. And sorry, 2 times 2 is not 2, it's 4. So the right answer ends up being C on this one. The quad program is going to tell you that as well, but that one's not too difficult to work just using the formula. Okay. This problem says find the vertex of the parabola. There's 2 ways to do this. You can do this by hand or you can use your calculator. I'm going to show you both ways, but I will tell you that sometimes using finding the vertex on the calculator can be a little bit challenging if you can't get your window to look right. So I would suggest doing that. To find the X value of the vertex, you just do negative B over 2A. So A in this problem is 3, B is equal to 18, C is equal to negative 3. So that would be negative 18, because I'm plugging in B, over 2 times A, and our A is a 3. So we would get negative 18 over 6. And if you divide that, you're going to get negative 3. Well, so unless I made a mathematical error somewhere, I'm pretty sure the answer is D, because X is supposed to be negative 3. This is X and Y. But to find out, to make sure what Y is supposed to be, I would go back to my formula here and I would say, well, what happens when I plug in a negative 3 for X? So I'm just taking all of my X's and I'm making them negative 3s. And when you type this in your calculator, you're going to get negative 30, which verifies that that's the answer. That's what Y would be. X is equal to negative 3 and Y is negative 30. And so that's the point that it's going to be the vertex. Some of you may want to work this on the graphing calculator, which is perfectly fine. Except if your screen is not big enough. So I'm going to go there real quick and just show you that you're able to do this. So I'm going to Y equals, I'm just typing in my function, 3x squared plus 18x. Sorry. Minus 3. Y'all must not love me very much. Y'all must not love me very much. It's okay if you tell me when I'm stupid. Got too much of a hurry. I apologize for that. 3x squared plus 18x minus 3. And I can look at my graph, and this is what I'm talking about. So on my screen that I have right now, I know that I have a vertex. A vertex is gonna, but I can't see it. It's way down here somewhere, right? So I'm gonna have to know, in order to find this vertex using the calculator, I'm gonna have to know, oh, I'm gonna have to go down farther on the Y minimum, right? I'm gonna have to go to my window and say, change my Y minimum to something more than negative 10. The problem is I know the answer because I just solved it. I know it needs to go down to negative 30 because we just figured that out. If I was doing this from scratch, I might not have a guess. I'd have to make it. So I'm going to make it negative 40 just because I know that's going to make it show up, or I feel like it's going to make it show up. So there it is. I can see it now. So to do this with your calculator, you're going to have to make sure you can see it. Then you would do second calc. I know that my vertex is a minimum, so I'm going to hit enter. It says left bound, so I would arrow over and pick something to the left. Then I want to pick something right bound, so something to the right of this point. I pick something to the left and then something to the right. Hit enter. Do I want it to guess? Yes, I do. And it's telling me negative 2.999, which is negative 3, negative 30. So, I mean, the calculator will tell you the answer, but you got to get it to show up on the calculator. I almost think it's more trouble than it's worth. It's not that hard to do negative B over 2A, but that's just my opinion. To find the multiplicity of this, you've got 2 times x plus 8 squared times x minus 8 cubed. Okay, so if this 2 had an x behind it, we would have to also calculate that. But since it's just a 2, you only worry about the sections that have an x in them. Okay, so this has an x plus 8. I want to know when that's equal to 0, and I want to know when x minus 8 is equal to 0. So I would subtract 8, and I would get x is negative 8 here, add 8, and get x is positive 8 here. And then it asks for the multiplicity of this. Well, this one has a multiplicity of 2. This has a multiplicity of 3. So on number 15, the right answer is going to be C. That one's pretty easy, right? Set it equal to 0, and your exponents are your multiplicities. Okay. Number 16 looks on the outside like it's going to be pretty easy, in my opinion. You know you're going to go to your calculator, you're going to type this stuff in. If I didn't have a calculator, I could say, oh, this is supposed to have some zeros wherever I get these things equal to 0. So it should go through 0, 0, should go through -2 should be a 0, and +1 should be a 0. The problem is these graphs are so shrunk because we're going from -240 to +240. It's hard to even see what points it goes through. Does that make sense? In my opinion, like if I look at B and D, I'm like, whoa, those look really close to being the same thing. So you're going to have to really slow down. A and C look close to being the same thing. Y'all agree with that? So let's go to the graphing calculator. Let's pull what we can pull, at least get it down to figuring out something. So I'm going here. I'm going to y equals. I'm just typing this thing in. Hopefully I do it right this time. So -x, and then I'm doing x plus 2. Rooftop, raise it to the second power. Then we're doing times x minus 1. Raised to the second power. Okay, and I'm going to hit graph. I think I am going to go. So I am going to look at my window. Right here, I can really see a close-up picture of it, but I want my window to kind of look like theirs. So on this paper, their x minimum would be -6. Their x max would be +6. Y minimum would be -240. Y maximum here is +240. So if I go back to my calculator and I kind of adjust this so that it matches, so -6, 6, Y minimum -240, Y maximum +240. And now I look at my graph, it should look a lot more like what my answers are. So it's going down from left to right. So when we look at our choices, it either has to be A or it has to be C. Y'all agree with that? Those are the only ones that B and D are going up. So we know it's not these. Okay. So then I got to kind of figure out, I got to figure out something else, because these are really, in my opinion, they're very, very close together. So the next thing I would do is I would go back to my graphing calculator and I would say, okay, let me jot down some points here to see if I can. So I'm going to go second table. Somebody has changed this to. Okay, much better. So when I look at my table, it looks like I've got some points here that I can kind of work with. I'm just going to jot some of them down. So -348. It goes all the way to -6. It's supposed to be 4,704. So we know that's not going to be on there. -348 should be on there. -14. We're going to have trouble seeing that. 2, -32 should be on there. So it's going to go back and look. So -348. So if I'm at -3 and we're going up here, it looks, so this is, let me blow this up just a little bit. Okay. So if this is 240 and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places to that, then that means 240 divided by 6. Those are going to be what, 40 a piece? So this is 40. This is 80. Does that make sense? So we said we had a point at negative 340 something. Well, that means that that point would be, this is 1, 2, 3, it would be like right here. 1, 2, 3, 40 something, gonna be right in here. This is it. You're gonna have to slow down on, do you see that? Pick you a point and make sure you divide it up, because I mean, it's easy to see that it's either A or C, but then from there, you're gonna have to kind of go, what is this going up by? There were 6 blanks until I got to 240, so I did 240 divided by 6 and got 40, and I knew each one of those boxes had to be 40. Pick you a point, and we picked the point -3, I think it was 47. And it's not, -347 would be about right here, which is this. Okay. So that one shouldn't be hard except for that. So slow down on that one. Questions about that? Okay. Find the vertical asymptotes of the graph of the function. Okay. We don't care about factoring the top of this unless we are looking for a hole. Okay. And we're not looking for a hole. So we don't care about factoring the top of that. We just need to find, we're just worried about when there's a problem in the domain. That's whenever we have vertical asymptote. So we want to know, when is x minus 4 equal to 0 and when is x plus 5 equal to 0, because those are problems in our domain. The denominator cannot be equal to 0. So we would solve these for 0. And those, since they're problems, they're going to be vertical asymptotes. They're going to be places that are going to divide our graph, but we're not going to have any values there. Kind of remember that one a little bit. Okay. I'm going to slow down just a little bit on 18 and 19 because it's been a while. Number 18 says, find the requested function value, and it says of g of f of 2. So I like to rewrite this as g of f of 2. Always start in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down f, which is this, but instead of x, I'm going to leave a blank. So I wrote down 4 times blank plus 5. I left a blank for x because they're telling me that they want 2 to be plugged in the blank. So all we're doing right now is finding f of 2. And 4 times 2 plus 5 is 8 plus 5 is going to be 13. So f of 2 is equal to 13. So the next thing I need to do is I need to go, okay, now I'm moving to the outside and I want g. Well, g is -3. I'm going to leave a blank for x. -3 times blank squared plus 2 times blank minus 8. Because they want f of 2 to go inside the blank, and f of 2 is 13. So when you calculate all this, you're going to get -489, which is C. Do we need to go back over that one, or are you good? Okay, find the middle first. Yes. No, because that's a good question. If it was g of 2 plus f of 2, that's when you would add it together. But you're done at this point. It's just -489. Start in the middle. Start with the middle, whatever it tells you to do there. So I wrote down f, I took out the x's and I plugged 2 in. And then I found out the middle with this whole middle is 13. So the next step is figure out what g of 13 is. So I wrote down g with all the x's missing and I plugged in 13. Okay. This problem is similar. It's saying find G of f of x. This time, same thing, start in the middle. This time it's not as challenging because we don't have to plug in a number there. We just have f of x. And so f of x is negative 3x plus 5. I got that from right here. They want me to plug in something for x, but it's x, so I'm done here. So the next thing they want me to do is move outward and say g of negative 3x plus 5. So that means I'm going to write down g of x without the x's there, because what's supposed to go in there is the negative 3x plus 5 gets put inside here. So we're going to multiply this out. 6 times negative 3x is negative 18x. 6 times 5 is 30 plus 2. So my final answer, I could put these two together, would be negative 18x plus 32. B. Okay. If something on number 20, if something is a function, it says determine whether the given function is 1-to-1. So if it is 1-to-1, then it will pass the horizontal line test and the vertical line tests. So that's the first thing you need to do, is you need to see, does this pass the horizontal line test and the vertical line test? You could go to your graphing calculator and type in y equals 2x minus 4. And when you do, you're going to see that it goes through these points. I'm just graphing it with the slope and the y-intercept. So up 2/1, 2/1. So it's going to kind of, this makes a straight line. It does something like this. Your graphing calculator would show you that if you went and graphed this. So if it passes the vertical line test, I could draw a vertical line and it would only hit it one time. If it passes the horizontal line test, same thing. I draw a horizontal line test, it would only hit it one time. So yes, it is 1-to-1. So I should be able to find the inverse. Okay. The other thing is, if you start working the problem and you can't find the inverse, then it's probably not 1-to-1, right? So we had some steps that we followed to find the inverse. Step number 1. Here's our function. Step number 1 is take f of x and make it y. So we would just say, instead of f of x, we're going to say y is equal to 2x minus 4. Step number 2, trade your y's for your x's. So wherever you see a y, put an x, and wherever you see an x, put a y. So you're going to say x is equal to 2y minus 4. Number 3, solve for y. So we want to get y by itself. So I'm gonna add 4, trying to move everything away from that y. So x plus 4 is equal to 2y. Divide everything by 2. So y is equal to x plus 4 divided by 2. The fourth step was change y into f inverse of x. So f inverse of x is equal to x plus 4 divided by 2. B. Questions about that one? Am I going too fast? Okay. This to me looks like, I mean, you definitely can figure out what it is without the graphing calculator, but if you go change your window, this would be your X minimum. This is your X maximum. This one's just so easy to do on the graphing calculator. Y minimum, Y maximum. 5 to the X plus, because the graphs look so different, it should be easy to spot. So I'm going to change my X minimum in my window to X minimum is -6, X max is +6, Y minimum is -6, Y maximum is +6. Not going to mess with anything else. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to type in the function. Five to the X plus 3 plus 2. And I mean, it's pretty clear to see that the only one that looks anything like that is A. Y'all agree? So, I mean, that one shouldn't be too rough, I don't think. So this part's what it's inside these parentheses up here with the exponent, it's +3. We would think it would go right 3, but it shifted it to the left 3. +2 went up 2. Like if you want to do this without, it's taking the root function y equals 5 to the x and going left 3 and up 2. Okay. Convert this to an exponential equation. If the log is written first, we did this, we kind of had a trick that we talked about in class, go to the first number, skip the second number, then come back to it. And so if I want to write it as an exponent, it would be 4 to the t is equal to 16. That's basically just a definition you're memorizing there on that one. Okay. 23, express this in terms of sums and differences of logs. When you're multiplying, you're adding. So I'm multiplying x to the 4th times z. So that must mean that I am adding 2 things. When you are dividing, you are subtracting. And the only thing there's only one thing on the bottom, so I must be subtracting 1 thing. Multiplying 2 things, dividing by 1 thing. So it would be the log of x to the 4th, multiplying, so I'm adding the log of z minus, because I'm dividing by, the log of y to the 6th. Right, okay with that part of it. After this, you kind of want to get rid of your parentheses. There's nothing in front of these parentheses, so we really didn't need them in the first place, but if there's a minus, you want to make sure you distribute that negative. And then the very last thing is if there's an exponent, it can move in front. Because we have that power rule that says that we can move that exponent in the front. So D. Hadn't been that long since we worked these, so that's probably a little bit more fresh on your brain. I hope that you can see by now that there are some challenging problems on the final, but for the most part, it's not the hardest problems of the sections you worked. It's a short snippet of everything. You should make a higher grade on the final than you made on any of the tests if you study for it. So it should be a way that you can really bring your grade up. The population of a small country increases according to the function B is equal to 1,100,000 E to the 0.02 T. T is measured in years. How many people are we going to have in the country after 9 years? So all we're doing is taking and plugging in 9 for T. So our population should be 1,100,000 times E to the 0.02 times 9. I mean, the hardest part of this problem is typing it in the calculator and making sure you know where the E button is, I feel like. 'Cause that might be a problem for some people. Because there's not any really, I guess maybe somebody might plug it in for B. I don't know, but we're gonna go, let me get out of here. So we're gonna go 1,100,000. Hopefully sometime today. E is second LN. The second LN on that first row, 0.02. If you type 0.02, that will be fine too, times 9. So you can't have part of a person. So 1,316,939. D. Okay. I'm gonna get really upset at some of you, especially the ones that come all the time. If you miss this one, don't forget about the fact that this is algebra. So a lot of times you can figure out if you're given multiple choice, you can figure out the answer by just plugging something in. So like on this one, I'm going to show you how to do it the right way. But on this one, if I want to see if 6 works, I could go, okay, well, it's 2 times 12 minus 2. I'm plugging in 6 here to see if that gives me 256. All I did was plug in 6 for X. If it doesn't, it didn't work. If it doesn't give me 256, right? So don't forget about the fact that a lot of these problems, you can just plug in the answer, and if it doesn't work, it's wrong. So please don't miss this, because people they think that, oh, that's a really difficult problem, but when you're given the answers, it's not difficult. Okay, so the way that you work this problem is you try to make 256 into 2 raised to some power. Because if you can do that, then whatever 12 minus 2x is going to be equal to that. Okay, and so 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. I hear you telling me the answer 2 is 32, 64, 128, 256. So 8, exactly. It's 8, 2 to the 8. So that means that 12 minus 2x is going to equal 8. This is not the type of problem you work all the time. So I do understand, I do understand that you might have trouble with this part, but you sure shouldn't have trouble plugging it in and see if it's equal to 256. So 2. Yeah. Okay. That is the final review.